He wasn't supposed to be home that early. A millionaire, respected by all, walked into his mansion expecting peace. But what he discovered inside shattered him to the core. In the corner of his luxurious living room, his own wife was towering over a young black girl, the maid's daughter, her tiny body trembling as cruel kicks landed mercilessly. This was no accident. It was rage. It was power twisted into violence, and in that moment, his world, and hers, changed forever. But the real shock wasn't what he saw. It was what he chose to do next. By all appearances, life inside the mansion was perfect. The millionaire was admired for his success. His wife envied for her beauty, and together they lived in luxury few could imagine. Yet beneath the shining floors and polished walls, there were lives few ever noticed, the staff who cleaned, cooked, and served without complaint. Among them was a quiet black maid, who worked tirelessly not only for her employer, but for the sake of her young daughter. The girl was innocent, no more than 12, with wide eyes that still believed in kindness, though the world rarely offered it to her. She often followed her mother to work, helping in small ways, playing in corners, always careful not to disturb. To her, the mansion was a world of wonder, a place she could only dream of belonging to. But in that same house, envy and cruelty festered where no one could see. The wife, behind her polished smile, carried resentment that no one questioned. It was subtle at first, a glare, a harsh word, a shove when no one was watching, small cruelties hidden in plain sight. What no one knew was that this quiet cruelty was building towards something darker, something that would be exposed the moment her husband returned home earlier than expected. The day had started like any other. The maid had arrived early, her daughter trailing behind, clutching a worn notebook she scribbled in while her mother worked. To the girl, the mansion felt like another world. So much space, so much beauty. But to the wife, her presence was nothing but an irritation, a constant reminder of someone she considered beneath her. At first it was little things. The wife would order the girl to scrub spots already clean, only to criticize her when they didn't meet her impossible standards. She'd snap at her for leaving a toy in the corner or for humming softly while helping her mother. The girl's smiles grew quieter with each passing day, her wide eyes dimming, though she never dared complain. She had learned early that silence was safer than speaking. But silence could not protect her forever. One evening, when the maid stepped outside to take a phone call, the wife seized the moment. She cornered the girl in the hallway, towering over her with cold fury. The girl froze, unsure of what she had done wrong this time. A harsh voice cut through the air, laced with venom, accusations of being lazy, ungrateful, a burden. Before the child could react, the first shove came, sudden, sharp, enough to send her stumbling back. The girl's breath caught, her body shaking. She wanted to run, but her legs refused to move. Then came the second shove, harder, and then the kick. Each strike carried more than anger. It carried centuries of prejudice, of power misused, of cruelty hidden behind wealth and status. To the wife, she wasn't just a child. She was someone less, someone who could be hurt without consequence. The girl's small hands shielded her face as tears burned her eyes. She whispered for her mother, but no one came. The mansion, with all its grandeur, echoed with silence, until the sound of heels striking against marble drowned it out. And then, just as another blow was about to land, the front door opened. The millionaire had returned. Earlier than expected. His footsteps echoed through the hall, casual at first, until he heard the sharp cry of a child. He froze, listening. Another sound followed, the thud of a kick. His brow furrowed as he rushed forward, turning the corner into a scene he could hardly comprehend. There, in his own home, stood his wife. Her face twisted with rage, her leg raised mid-kick. At her feet, the maid's daughter lay curled into herself, trembling, her tiny frame bracing for pain that should never have been hers to bear. Time seemed to stop. His chest tightened. His mind raced. This was more than cruelty. This was betrayal, hatred, violence in its rawest form. The millionaire who had built his fortune on discipline and respect was staring at a reality that threatened to shatter everything he thought he knew about the woman he shared his life with. And in that moment, one decision would determine not just the fate of a child, but the truth of who he really was. For a brief second, the millionaire couldn't move. His eyes locked on the scene before him, his wife, frozen mid-kick, and the young black girl crumpled on the floor. A wave of disbelief, then rage, surged through him. This wasn't just cruelty, it was evil, carried out under his own roof. His voice thundered through the hall, louder than he ever thought possible. The wife spun around, startled, her mask of elegance shattered. She stammered excuses, words laced with entitlement. She was disrespectful. She doesn't belong here. But her husband wasn't listening. His gaze was fixed on the girl. She trembled like a cornered bird, her arms shielding her face, her breaths shallow and quick. Bruises already began to bloom on her fragile skin. He knelt beside her, his hand gentle, his voice breaking as he whispered, "You're safe now." For the first time, the child allowed herself to cry. And then, something shifted. The wife, realizing her husband's fury, raised her chin in defiance. She spat venom against the child, against her mother, against everything she deemed less. Each word cut sharper than the blows she had delivered. The millionaire's fists clenched. In that moment, he faced a choice that would define him, not just as a husband, but as a man. Would he turn away, preserving his image, his wealth, his marriage? Or would he stand up, exposing the ugliness festering behind his own doors? The silence was deafening. His breath came heavy, his heart pounding against his chest, and then he stood tall, his decision clear, his next action unstoppable. Because what he did in the next moment wouldn't just protect one child. It would echo through the lives of everyone in that house, and far beyond. The millionaire's choice was swift and undeniable. He pulled the girl into his arms, shielding her with the same walls that had once witnessed her pain. His wife's protests echoed, but for the first time, her words carried no weight. In that moment, he stripped her of the power she had used to harm, exposing her cruelty for what it was. The maid returned to find her daughter trembling in safety, her tears flowing freely. Relief washed over her, but so did a heavy truth. No amount of wealth could erase the scars of what had been done. The girl would heal, but the memory would remain. A reminder that even in the grandest of houses, injustice can lurk in the shadows. For the millionaire, his home no longer symbolized success. It became a reflection of responsibility. He had learned that silence is complicity, and turning away only feeds the cruelty that thrives on being unseen. This story may feel like one moment, one family, one house. But it's not. It's a mirror held up to society. How many times have children like her suffered in silence? How many voices have been ignored simply because of the color of their skin or the status of their parents? The millionaire acted that day, but what about us? Every act of injustice demands a response. Every silence becomes permission, and every time we look away, we allow the cycle to continue. So the question remains, when cruelty hides behind power, behind wealth, behind privilege, will we stand up or will we walk away?